The best summer memories are made outside, and LL Bean has the clothing and gear you need to make these memories. Their effortless styles are created for summer spent outside with family and friends. Like hand-sewn boat shoes, coastal cotton sweaters, rugged polos, and, of course, the iconic boat and tote, which has been made right here in Maine since 1944. LL Bean. Be an outsider. Visit llbean.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Japan's railways are often seen as symbols of precision, modernity, and movement. From the lightning-fast Shinkansen to quiet countryside lines that wind through mountains and forests, trains are woven into the rhythm of daily life. But when the last train departs and the station falls silent, another side of Japan's rail network begins to emerge. A shadow world of phantom trains, haunted crossings, and stations where something lingers long after the final conductor has gone home. I'm Kevin O'Shea, and tonight on Supernatural Japan, we step off the platform and into the darkness, exploring stories of ghostly locomotives, tragic accidents, and the spirits said to remain along Japan's railway lines. Japan's fascination with trains began during the rapid modernization of the Meiji Restoration. Steam engines were powerful, mysterious machines, symbols of Western technology and progress. But for many, they were also strange and unsettling. During this era, stories began to circulate about the Nisei Kisha, the false steam engines. Witnesses described hearing the unmistakable chugging of a locomotive, the hiss of steam, and the distant whistle echoing through the night. Yet no train would appear. Tracks would tremble, signals would seem to react, but the line remained empty. In some accounts, these phantom trains were seen briefly, dark silhouettes rushing past without lights, vanishing into the distance. In others, they were heard but never seen, like echoes from another world. Folklorists have suggested that these railway ghost stories reflect a cultural anxiety about industrialization, a blending of old spiritual beliefs with new, unfamiliar technology. Just as forests and rivers had once become home to spirits, the new rail lines themselves seem to carry something unseen. Let's start things off by looking at a haunted crossing, the Nozawa Railway Crossing in Tachikawa. Now, modern Japan has its own railway legends, often tied to real-world tragedy. One such place is the Nozawa Railway Crossing in Tachikawa. This crossing has gained a reputation over the years due to a number of fatal accidents. While railway crossings across Japan are generally extremely safe, locations like Nozawa, where visibility, timing, and human error have led to repeated incidents, they can take on a darker reputation. Local stories suggest that late at night, long after regular train service is slowed, people have reported strange sensations near the crossing. Some claim to hear the faint ringing of crossing bells when no train is scheduled, and others describe seeing figures standing near the tracks, only for them to vanish when approached. In a country where trains are, tragically, sometimes sites of suicide, these stories take on an added emotional weight. The idea that spirits might linger at a place of their final moments is deeply rooted in the Japanese belief systems, particularly those involving yurei, the restless ghosts tied to unresolved emotions. Now let's talk about urban ruins frozen in time, Kokudo Station. Not all haunted railway locations are hidden in remote areas. Some exist in plain sight, quietly decaying within the modern city. One of the most striking examples is Kokudo Station. Still in operation on the Tsurumi line, Kokudo Station feels like stepping into the past. Beneath the elevated tracks lies a dim underpass that's shuttered sometimes. It's got cracked concrete and exposed wiring. The lighting is sparse and the atmosphere is heavy. Now, there's no single defining tragedy here, no widely known ghost story rooted in a specific event. Instead, it's the overwhelming sense of abandonment that unsettles visitors. I suppose it's one of those liminal places, and I have to admit that I have always been attracted to liminal places, liminal spaces, those kind of abandoned feeling areas. I suppose that's why I myself often like to share photos of empty and old Showa-era buildings on my social media. Whenever I'm around in Japan, walking down streets at night, I like to take photos of abandoned places. They just have such a kind of spooky vibe, and you're left wondering, what was this place once like? Now, back to Kokudo Station. People report hearing footsteps echoing behind them in the empty corridor, and others describe glimpsing figures at the far end of the passage, only for them to vanish when approached. Kokudo Station is less about a haunting and more about a feeling. A place where time has stalled and something unseen may still be lingering in the shadows. It's time for fox spirits and flickering shadows at JR Inari Station. In Kyoto, the boundary between the spiritual and the everyday is often blurred. Now, JR Inari Station sits just steps away from Fushimi Inari Taisha, one of Japan's most spiritually significant sites. And these days, if you go there, one of the most crowded. Dedicated to the Kami Inari, the shrine is closely associated with fox spirits, kitsune, known in folklore for their intelligence, trickery, and ability to shapeshift. By day, the area is alive with visitors, but at night, it becomes something else entirely. Some late-night visitors report shadowy figures near the station or along the paths nearby, and others describe faint whispers or footsteps pacing just out of sight. There are even stories of fox-like shapes darting across the tracks and disappearing into the darkness. Now, whether these experiences are supernatural or psychological, JR Inari Station occupies a unique space where ancient belief and modern infrastructure intersect. Shadows at the foot of Fuji, Kawaguchiko Station. At the northern base of Japan's most iconic mountain lies Kawaguchiko Station, a peaceful gateway to lakes, forests, and some of the most breathtaking views of Mount Fuji. Now, by day, the station is filled with travelers, tourists arriving to photograph Fuji reflected in the lake, hikers preparing to climb, and families exploring the surrounding countryside. It feels bright, open, and welcoming. But, like many places in Japan, the atmosphere shifts as the light fades. Kawaguchiko Station sits not far from one of Japan's most infamous locations, Aokigahara Forest, often known as the Sea of Trees. Now, this dense forest, growing from volcanic rock at the base of Mount Fuji, has long been associated with eerie silence, disorientation, and deeply unsettling stillness. And over time, it has also become linked with tragic human stories and a reputation for paranormal encounters. Now, because of this proximity, some believe that the atmosphere surrounding Kawaguchiko Station carries a trace of that same unease. Now, there are no widely documented single incidents tied directly to the station itself. No defining tragedy like those at certain crossings or urban stations. Instead, what persists is quieter, more atmospheric accounts. Visitors and travelers have described a strange heaviness in the air during the twilight hours. As crowds thin and the last buses depart, the station can become unexpectedly still. And some report an eerie silence that feels almost unnatural, broken only by distant sounds that are difficult to place. And there are also stories, more whispered than recorded, of figures glimpsed near the edge of the station or along the tracks at dusk, shapes that seem to linger just long enough to be noticed, then they disappear. Others speak of a feeling of being watched, not in a threatening way, but in a quiet, persistent sense that they are not alone. Now, some interpretations link these experiences to the emotional weight of the nearby Aokigahara, the idea that places tied to loss and memory can influence the spaces around them. Now, whether psychological or something more, Kawaguchiko Station represents a different kind of haunting. And as the last train departs and Mount Fuji disappears into shadow, it's easy to wonder, what else might be waiting just beyond those trees? Now let's examine some echoes beneath the city at Kintetsu Nara Station. Deep beneath the historic city of Nara lies Kintetsu Nara Station, a busy hub with a quieter, more mysterious side. Serving as a gateway to landmarks like Toraiji and Kofukuji, the station sees thousands of visitors. But in its quieter hours, the atmosphere can shift. Staff and commuters have reported hearing distant footsteps and muffled voices in otherwise empty areas. And some describe the feeling of being watched, even when alone. There are also stories of fleeting apparitions appearing on platforms after the last train, figures that dissolve as quickly as they appear. In a city layered with centuries of history, it's easy to imagine that something of the past still lingers beneath the surface. And by the way, folks, you can go back and listen to another episode I did on Nara, all about the messengers of the gods, the sacred deer of Nara. So go check that out. Japan's railway system is one of the safest in the world, yet its long history inevitably includes moments of disaster. Accidents, derailments, and intentional deaths have all contributed to a body of ghost lore surrounding the rails. In the aftermath of fatal incidents, railway staff have sometimes reported unexplained occurrences. Footsteps on empty platforms, shadows moving along tracks, or the feeling of being watched late at night in maintenance areas. One commonly shared belief among railway workers is that certain sections of track feel heavy, as if something is pressing down on the space itself. Whether psychological or something more, these sensations are often strongest in places where accidents have occurred. There are also stories, quietly shared and rarely documented, of train drivers seeing figures on the tracks that disappear before impact. In some cases, emergency brakes are triggered, only for inspections to reveal nothing there at all. These experiences blur the line between trauma, memory, and the supernatural.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
Now let's take a look at remote lines and lonely stations, the silence of the countryside. Now, away from the bustling cities, Japan's rural rail lines offer a very different atmosphere. These lines, often operated by small regional companies, pass through isolated valleys, dense forests, and sparsely populated villages. Stations along these routes can often feel frozen in time. Unmanned platforms, faded signs, and long stretches of silence between trains. Now, one of the most famous examples of this is the Doi Station, often referred to as Japan's mole station. Deep underground, accessible only by descending hundreds of steps, Doi Station is both an engineering curiosity and a place of eerie stillness. Now, visitors frequently describe an overwhelming sense of isolation, and if you see pictures of this place, you will understand why, folks. And please go to Instagram and follow the show at Supernatural Japan, and there will be pictures of the station. It is pretty creepy. Now, the long stairway down seems to stretch endlessly, and the absence of staff or other passengers amplifies every sound. The echo of footsteps, the hum of distant air currents. Now, while not tied to a specific single haunting, Doi Station has become the subject of modern folklore. Stories circulate online of shadowy figures glimpsed at the edge of a platform, or of hearing footsteps behind you on the stairs, only to turn around and find no one there. Other rural stations across Japan carry similar reputations. The combination of remoteness, stillness, and minimal human presence creates the perfect setting for the imagination or something else to take hold. And I have to admit, I have spent more than a few evenings standing on an empty train platform back in the day, and there is absolutely a certain creepy vibe to it. So again, to check out pictures of these different stations, go to follow us on Instagram at Supernatural Japan. Now there are even tales of phantom trains in this modern age. Even today, reports of phantom trains persist. And these are not the steam engines of the Meiji era, but modern echoes. Lights seen approaching on disused tracks, the sound of trains passing where no line exists, or the distant rumble of wheels long after the last service has ended. Now, in some cases, these stories are tied to abandoned railway lines where nature has begun to reclaim the tracks, and locals speak of hearing trains that no longer run, as if the past continues to replay itself in fragments. There is something uniquely haunting about these accounts. Trains are linear, bound to tracks, moving from one place to another with purpose. A ghost train, then, is something out of place. A journey without a destination, endlessly repeating. In Japan, the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds has always been seen as thin. Traditional beliefs shaped by Shinto and Buddhism suggest that spirits can inhabit places as well as people. Now, locations tied to strong emotions, fear, grief, or sudden death are particularly susceptible to spiritual residue. Railway lines, with their history of both daily life and occasional tragedy, become natural focal points for these beliefs. There is also a psychological element. Trains are transitional spaces, places of movement, of departure and arrival. Stations are thresholds. Crossings are intersections between paths. In folklore, these liminal spaces are often where the supernatural is most likely to appear. As the final train pulls away and the platform empties, Japan's railways don't simply fall silent. They hold on to echoes, of footsteps, of voices, of journeys that may never have truly ended. From the phantom steam engines of the Meiji era to the quiet unease of rural stations like Doi, these stories remind us that even in a country defined by technological precision, there are still mysteries that can't be scheduled, controlled, or explained. Thanks for listening to Supernatural Japan. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to help the show grow, please leave a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts and a rating and a comment on Spotify or wherever else you listen to us. It really makes a difference. Now, to see photos of the different stations and crossings I was talking about this evening, follow us on Instagram at Supernatural Japan and check out our Facebook group. Links are in the show notes and over on supernaturaljapan.com. Now, there are premium memberships available if you guys would love to support the show. You can get exclusive content on Patreon. Now, if you really love Supernatural Japan, you're really going to love this. Now, there are 3 different tiers. And of course, all of those tiers bring ad-free episodes of the main show and early releases of the main show. Plus, the Japan Ghost Stories podcast, the Spicy Wasabi podcast, and lots of great video content and blogs, things that you can only find on Patreon. The link is in the show notes over at supernaturaljapan.com, and that's a great way to keep this podcast going. Now, I want to give a shout out to our latest premium member, Game Tech Match. Thank you very much, Game Tech Match, for coming on over to Patreon. Your support goes such a long way, and I hope you're enjoying all of the awesome content. Now, if you guys have any ideas for podcast episodes, or you've had a supernatural experience in Japan, or you just want to say hello, you can email me at supernaturaljapan@gmail.com or use the contact form over on supernaturaljapan.com. And that's it for this episode of Supernatural Japan. I'm your host, Kevin O'Shea. Now, the next time you're waiting alone on the platform, listening to the distant hum of the tracks, ask yourself, is that the sound of an approaching train? Or something that never really left?
Looking for a hauntingly unique podcast this spooky season? Listen to I Talk to Ghosts for chilling ghost stories, genuine in-studio medium readings, and a virtual seance table where the spirits have an opportunity to speak directly to you. Find I Talk to Ghosts on all the fine podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Happy haunting.
I'm Annie from Boston, Massachusetts.
And I'm Johanna from Vienna, Austria. We are the hosts of Fresh Hell, your international podcast that covers murder, mystery, and the macabre throughout history. Are you interested in the 3,569 ways your household could have killed you in the Victorian era?
Do you know how malaria and syphilis played a role in the John List family murders?
And have you ever wondered what Prince Albert's sex chair had to do with the murder of Stanford White? Okay, nothing. It had nothing to do with it. We're still telling you about it, though.
It's a pretty great sex chair. If you're looking for another show that talks about Ted Bundy, this is probably not the podcast for you. But if you're looking for 2 women that cover lesser-known cases from all over the world with a lot of background information.
So much background information that you will rock your local pub quiz from now on.
Then find Fresh Hell Podcast on your favorite podcast app.
We also have German cannibals.
See you soon.
Tschüss.